Welcome to PHP Fundamentals. My name is Julio Quevedo for Framework Television. Today we're going to talk about files. Now, when working with PHP applications, most of the time the data that we use is going to be in a database. However, there are going to be times in which you need to work with files in order to retrieve and store data. In this episode, we're going to learn how to open and close files, how to read and write from into files. Let's get started. All right. How do we work with files? Let's take a look. We have a simple text file here, and let's take a look at how that looks. This is the text file, all right? How do we access it using PHP? All right, well, we're going to see. There are three ways to extract the contents of a file without modifying it, without touching it. And we're going to do this one by one just to see how this looks. Save, and let's go here to Files, PHP. All right, the first one is by using the read file function, right? You pass the name of the file, and this is the output that we get. Just a single string. Okay? No formatting, nothing. Now, this function actually returns the number of bytes in the file. So if we do this, and we save and refresh, pay attention here. Okay? Did you see that? That is the size of the file. Okay? So the read file function works by just simply retrieving the contents of the file. We're not opening the file in order to manipulate anything. This is all it does. Now there's a couple more ways. Let's take a look. The file get contents function. Once again, you pass the name of the file, right? And let's see what we get. Well, let's save here. Same, okay? You get a string. But instead of like in the read file function that outputs this automatically to the screen, the file get contents returns a string. And without this echo statement, nothing would show. The third way is the file function. Pass the name of the file and it returns an array. And let's see how that looks. Now the array it consists of key value. It's actually an indexed array. Each line will be an element. Okay, so if you pay careful attention to this part right here, right, and we go back to the plain text file, each line will be an element in the array. But with those three functions, there's nothing much we can do. All we can do is take a look at the contents of the file. If the file is a text file, like in this case, if it was a binary file, then we wouldn't be able to read it. So how do we access a file in order to start manipulating it? Well, let's take a look. Here we have the same file, right? Let's save, let's refresh, and let's see what this does first. We are using the fopen function. The first argument it takes is the name of the file. The second argument is, this can vary, and I'll tell you what the choices are. It could be R for only reading the file. It could be W for only writing to the file. But if you write to the file, the contents of the file will be erased. If you use A, right, it appends to the end of the file. So whatever contents you have in your file here, this will go to the end of the file. Nothing will be erased. And there's another value, X, and that creates a file and writes to the file. The difference is that if the file already exists, when you use X, you will get an error. So it will not let you overwrite an existing file. Now the plus is for reading and writing. So it applies the same if we have R, it's for reading only. If we have R plus, it will be for reading and writing. And once again, you would overwrite the contents of the file. If we have W here, write to the file, and W plus, you can read and write to the file. But when you use W, the contents of the file are erased. And it works the same for A plus and X plus. So let's see. We have the fopen function that returns what is called a resource type, or sometimes it's called a file handle. And we're going to need to store the return from this function in order to be able to close it. When we close our file, which is important in order to preserve the contents, we don't want them to be changed afterwards or corrupted, we need to pass a resource type. This function, fclose, will not take the name of the file. So we open our file, and then we have the fread function. What does the fread function does? It takes two arguments. It takes the name of the file, right? And we are sending the size of the file. So it will read the file up to a size that you give it to it. In this case, we are telling the fread function, you're going to read the file up to whatever size this file is, and it stores it in a string. All right, so let's refresh. And what do we have? We have, now after we send this to the screen, right, using this echo statement on line 34, we have, this is where it ends. All right, you know what? Let me actually comment this out so you can see more clearly what we've done. And now we have an error. And that's because we are closing the file twice. All right, so let's get rid of this. All right. Now, each time I refreshed, take a look at what happened. We added for Julie twice. All right, so let's quickly change that. Let's access this file, and all right, save, and let's go back here. All right, when I refresh again, we're gonna see this only once. Actually, we're not gonna see this at all. Why? Because we are sending this to the screen, and only after that, we are writing something to it. And then we're closing the file. Okay, let's see. All right, like I told you, there's nothing here. We have added, so we know how to read a file now by using the fread function, right? We know how to write something to the file by using the fwrite function. Nothing shows here because we have used the echo statement before. But now, let's see how it looks after. All right, we're going to comment this out, and we are going to once again open the file, and this time we're going to use in order to read the file, we're going to use the fgets function. What this does is it takes the name of the file and it prints out the file line by line. We are adding a break in order to see that. Let's see. Refresh. Save here. And refresh. Okay. All right. I forgot to save here, and that's why we see for Julie twice. But here we go. We are reading this file using a while statement. Okay. Now the while statement, we are using the end of file function in order to read the file up to the point when the file ends. Each fgets function reads one line from the file, and that's why we see one line read each time the while loop goes through. And finally, we close the file. All right. Now, a more common kind of file that you would be working with when working with files at all, when you're not working with a database, is called a comma separated value file. And usually you see those in spreadsheets. All right. I'm going to refresh this, but first I want you to see something. When I run this program, when I run this script, all right, take a look here, okay? When I run this again, refresh. All right, so what happened? When I run this code, okay, a new file was created. Okay, and how do we do that? Well, first we created 3 arrays: data 0, data 1, data 2. Each of the arrays has 3 elements, a string each. So each array is an array of 3 strings. Okay. Next, we have opened a file and we have given it a name, data.csv, and we are appending to the end of the file. Okay. Now this takes the handle of the file. Okay. Now what we have done is we have written to the file using the fputcsv function, which takes 2 arguments: the name of the file and the array that you're writing to it. Okay. Now this was just created now as I ran this script, and let's see how it looks. This is how it looks. I guess I run it twice, and that's why we see this. Okay, so we have a comma separated value file. Now let's see how it looks in the browser. It actually doesn't open it. All right, let's go back to files PHP, and look, every time this is run, right, it produces 3 more lines. All right, let's go back in here. All right, in order to read from a comma separated value file, we open the file, store the resource type in a variable, and using the contents, we're going to show, we're going to output this to the screen, the contents of this file to the screen. Okay, we're going to use a while loop, and we're going to run this while loop until it finds the end of the file, right? Now each time this function is called, it returns a row in the form of an array. All right, and so that's why we're using the for each loop in order to access each of the elements in that array. Okay, So let's take a look at how this looks. Save. Let's refresh here and let's go back to PHP. All right. So here we have, this is a file. This is a spreadsheet file that shows the contents of it. And just to tell you a little bit about myself, I am a Rubik's Cube enthusiast, as you might have guessed from the first few episodes. And every now and then we have competitions at home with my kids, and these are at the actual times of the competitions. So we store this in a spreadsheet, and with this few lines of code, right? Take a look. How many lines of code do we have? We have 12. You can use this to open any spreadsheet, and I'll put it to the screen. All right, that's it for files in this episode. I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you next time.